I nearly missed what might be the biggest crypto comeback of the year. While everyone was watching Bitcoin slip and stumble, one forgotten coin quietly shot up over 700% when nobody was looking. It was the last thing that I expected, an old privacy coin surging back to life, practically screaming for attention. So I put on my own detective hat to find out why this was happening. And what I discovered is opening up a whole new conversation about privacy, power, and where crypto is headed. Now, you know that I love a good old underdog story, and trust me here, this one might just change how you see the crypto game. So stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand why everyone is suddenly talking about Zcash again, and what it means for all of us. Let me rewind a little bit, right? The year is 2016. Zcash launched amid a whole ton of hype, right? There was this era where a new coin could go absolutely nuts, and Zcash was no exception. On day one, it briefly hit something ridiculous like $5,000 per coin. Yeah, you heard that right, $5,000. Now, of course, that didn't last long. Reality sets in, right? And Zcash's price crashed hard, more than 80% down from its peak. For the longest time after that, Zcash was mostly just background noise. Sure, it was alive, the tech was pretty cool, but the price and the buzz? Pretty much flatlined, especially while newer projects and big players like Bitcoin and Ethereum stole the spotlight. Fast forward to now, late 2025, and out of nowhere, Zcash has been on an absolute tear. Now, over the past few months, it's skyrocketed roughly 700%. Right, we're talking about going from $50 in September to around $450 today. That's an 8x gain in basically just a quarter of a year. Meanwhile, Bitcoin in that same period kind of just snoozing or even slipping just a bit. Now, I think Bitcoin was down around 8% in the last 3 months. So imagine my surprise seeing Zcash, of all things, leaving Bitcoin in the dust. Naturally, my first thought was, okay, what on earth is going on here? Is this just some coordinated pump? Is there some news that I've missed? I had to investigate. One big clue came from some on-chain data and an analysis by Galaxy Digital that I had to dig into. Now, it turns out that a lot of what's fueling this Zcash rally is happening quietly on the blockchain itself. Zcash was built for privacy. That's its whole kind of claim to fame. And it seems people are finally using it for that in a rather big way. But here's the scoop. Over 30% of all of the Zcash in existence is now being held in shielded addresses. Now, those are the privacy-enhanced addresses where all of the details of the transactions are indeed hidden. Now, that percentage is higher than it has ever been in Zcash's history. In raw numbers, it's something like 5 million ZEC tokens tucked away in these shielded pools, which, at the current price, is roughly around $2 billion worth. That's not chump change. So, what does that tell us? It suggests that a lot of Zcash holders are moving their coins off of the exchanges and into these private, self-custodied wallets. They're likely holding them there for a bit of a longer term. Now, these are your high conviction folks, the true believers in privacy, who aren't just trying to make a quick buck on an exchange. They're locking their ZEC tokens in vaults that only they can control, essentially saying, we're in this for the long haul, and we value the privacy that this gives us. And get this, more than 85% of Zcash's direct transaction volume is now coming from those shielded transactions. Now that means that the majority of the ZEC being moved around each day is actually happening under the wraps, right? You can't see who is sending what and to whom. In other words, the network is being used, predominantly as a privacy tool, exactly as intended. Now that's a huge change from its past, where a lot of Zcash transactions were actually just transparent because Zcash lets you choose between being regular kind of transparent addresses and the shielded ones. Let me break down the tech in simple ways because it's actually really, really cool. Now think of most blockchain transactions like sending a postcard, right? Anyone along the way can read what's written on the postcard, right? They see the address, the amounts, and all of it is in the open. Now, Zcash's shielded transactions are more like sending a sealed envelope with a special wax seal that proves that it is legitimate. Now, the network doesn't need to open the envelope to verify that it is valid. It just looks at the cryptographic seal, that's a fancy zero-knowledge proof part, which basically says, trust me, everything inside this envelope checks out. So, outsiders, they see nothing, not the sender, not the receiver, not the amount. It's completely encrypted, yet it's still verifiable, which is pretty mind-blowing, right? This concept of true financial privacy was the dream of the kind of crypto and cypherpunks and early crypto advocates, right? Zcash's founder, 𝗗𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘, basically essentially took Bitcoin's blueprint and added this privacy layer to the kind of Bitcoin lacked, right? And as one kind of report put it, the goal was quite simple. Keep the monetary DNA of Bitcoin, but fix the whole privacy problem that Satoshi left unresolved, right? Now, here we are, almost a decade later, finally seeing that vision resonate. Now, whenever you see a pump like this, I kind of put on my skeptical hat. At least I have to, right? Because, hey, crypto is full of pumps that don't last that long. So I wasn't just going to take it at face value that Zcash is mooning for the right reasons, right? Some really smart people are skeptical as well. For instance, you had an economist, Lynn, who's pretty respected in the Bitcoin community, went on record warning that this Zcash rally could be a coordinated pump and dump. Basically, she cautioned that if you FOMO into it late, then you might actually end up as the exit liquidity, which is a fancy way of saying bag holders, at least saying bag holder for the people who kind of get in early. Yikes, right? It's a serious warning. On the flip side, of course, other big names have jumped in with a counterpoint, right? Many of them might actually know a guy called 𝗕𝗃𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘. He's actually a tech entrepreneur and early crypto investor, right? Now, essentially, he's argued that privacy coins like Zcash might actually have fundamental value that's being recognized at last. Now, he made a comment that stuck with me here. Transparent crypto won't survive a government crackdown. So think about that for a second, right? If every transaction that you make is on the blockchain is traceable and some authority doesn't like where you've been sending your money, well, they could shut it down or blacklist you, right? Now, 𝗕𝗃𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘's point here was that in the longer run, coins that can preserve privacy might be the ones that endure if regulations get harsh. It was almost like he was saying, don't write off Zcash, it might be a lifeboat someday. I would go a little bit further though, and I would say that privacy is the missing layer within the crypto ecosystem, but you do need it to be compliant. You need compliant privacy, right? Zcash gives you an element of that, more so than others like Monero maybe. Right? Zcash is transparent, non-transparent is great, but I think there's a lot of promise for a new project that's going to give that compliant privacy. This is a Cardano sidechain called Midnight, and it is going to be one of the biggest privacy-based projects on the planet, in my humble opinion. If you haven't done research on Midnight protocol, you need to go ahead and check it out. They're just going to be launching around the corner. And no, there is no pre-sale. Everything is airdropped or mined through a scavenger hunt. So there's no way to kind of get in early if you haven't already been holding Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polygon, ADA, XRP, AVAX, and so forth. Right? If you weren't holding some of these other cryptocurrencies, you wouldn't have been able to get the airdrop. The airdrop is now finished. And of course, they're now onto the scavenger hunt. So if you're looking for Night tokens as part of a new compliant privacy-based project, then you should probably check out Midnight. But, that's probably a story for another day. So anyway, here we've kind of got two different perspectives then, right? You've got one side saying that this is fake, be careful. And then you've got the other side saying this is real and maybe even overdue. And I'm in the middle here saying that there's actually other things going on in the space, all about compliant privacy and how it's a missing layer. And I'm trying to make sense of, these two arguments, right? Honestly, the more that I dug into this, the more that I found actual substance behind Zcash's surge, because it's not just a couple of whales manipulating the price though, is it, right? I mean, who knows really, but it could be part of that too, I guess. Always possible in crypto, but we do have to be real, tangible. We do have real tangible adoption metrics that are recorded here, right? We record shielded usage. We've got active developments and now support from exchanges and DeFi platforms that hadn't paid attention to Zcash in a while, as in they all delisted it because of the privacy concerns. Now, before I do go any further, let me slip in a rather quick but super important disclaimer because we've got some exciting stuff here and I do need to make sure that we're crystal clear on it. Now, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. Your investments, of course, are entirely your responsibility and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, I'm glad that we got that out of the way. I know that most of you guys already know that, but it is important to say it out loud and clear for all of the YouTube overlords. Now, let's get back to the Zcash story because it does get even more interesting because it's not just a bunch of anonymous holders stashing coins here, right? The Zcash development community have been busy as well, and that's a big part of why confidence is coming back, right? There's something called Project Tachyon, right, in the works led by, one of Zcash's key developers. That's Sean, by the way, if you're curious about the names. Now, the goal of Tachyon is to seriously boost Zcash's transaction capacity and performance, especially for those private transactions. Now, if they do pull this off, using Zcash could become a lot smoother and faster, which actually could make it more practical for everyday use, not just privacy niche. At the same time, user experience is also getting better. There's a wallet named Zashi, I'm probably murdering the name. Anyway, it's been highlighted recently, and it was basically makes using the shielded addresses a lot easier and a lot friendlier. Historically, the one knock against Zcash was that using the privacy features was kind of clunky, especially compared to just sending a normal Bitcoin transaction, right? So if this wallet or other applications have that same fix, it lowers the barrier for more people to actually go private, which again expands the anonymity set. And, the bigger that set, then the bigger the privacy is for everyone else using it. And let's also talk about market infrastructure, right? Even the traders are piling on in. A decentralized exchange called Hyperliquid just added ZEC tokens and ZEC perpetual futures, I should say. Now, if you're not into trading or not a trading junkie, that might sound a little bit like gobblish or gibberish or gobbledygook or whatever you want to kind of say, right? Some kind of nonsense. But basically, it means that traders can now bet on Zcash's price with leverage on a decentralized exchange. Bonkers, right? Similar to how you probably trade Bitcoin or Ethereum futures on a centralized exchange. Now, this is a pretty big deal because it adds liquidity and gives sophisticated traders a way to participate. In fact, right, I read that open interest, which is a total for all of the positions people actually have open on Zcash futures, has climbed to about $115 million right after Hyperliquid introduced it. That's a strong sign that serious money is paying attention. All of these factors, more privacy usage, active development, better user tools, and increased liquidity, they formed a perfect cocktail for Zcash's price to explode. And explode it did, right? It even pushed Zcash's market cap above $7 billion, placing it comfortably in the top 20 cryptos. Here's a fun fact though, right? That is higher than its peak in 2021's bull run. And get this, Zcash even leapfrogged Monero in value, which is pretty huge because Monero has been reigning privacy coin for basically forever in crypto terms. Seeing Zcash overtake Monero, even if it is just for now, is like seeing an old contender win the championship belt back. It's kind of symbolic. Now, you might be wondering, does this mean that Monero is done? Or that privacy coins are going mainstream? I would say not so fast. Monero has incredible strong technology and a very loyal community. It's just that Zcash had this unique confluence of events here, and mainstream might be a bit of a stretch, right? Because privacy coins, they still face a whole ton of hurdles, especially with regulation. But that's why I'm talking about compliance and regulatory issues, and basically compliant privacy being the next really big thing. But we'll talk about that in a second, right? But it does mean that it does feel like, I should say, that privacy renaissance of sorts here, right? After years of kind of just being a niche or even kind of frowned upon, privacy in crypto is, well, back in the conversation. Now, This whole Zcash saga actually got me thinking beyond just the coins. It reminded me why I fell in love with crypto in the first place, right? It empowers, of course, the little guy, that's you and me, to have more control. And not just control over the privacy, but also control over how we participate in networks and even earn from them. Which brings me to something slightly different, but related to the ethos of empowerment. That is a project that I've been personally exploring on the side called Unity. Now, if you've been on the channel for a while, you've probably heard me mention Unity nodes by now. It's one of those really cool projects that kind of caught my attention. The idea is pretty straightforward. You run a mobile phone application, it works on iOS and Android, and by doing that, you become a part of a decentralized network that rewards you in crypto. It's like mining, but instead of fancy hardware or big ASIC rigs, you actually just get to use regular smartphones. Now, I was intrigued enough that I actually went ahead and bought a Unity Masternode NFT. What does that mean? Well, it means that I basically have the rights to operate up to 200 devices, they call them licenses, on the network when their app actually goes live, which should be pretty soon. Now, my plan is to start off small, so I'm going to start by hooking up 10 phones to test to see how it all kind of goes. Now, I want to see in practice how much they can earn, how stable it all is, and all that kind of good stuff. It does look promising on their light paper and their rewards calculator, and I do have the capacity to scale up to 200 devices, but there is a caveat with that. We do want to spread those devices far and wide. You don't want 200 devices in one location. That's not going to net you the best results. So we are going to be looking at trying to figure out ways of geographically placing these devices all over the place. So yeah, I guess more details on that down in the Discord. The really cool part here and neat part is that I actually can choose what cryptocurrencies that I actually want as rewards to be paid out in. For me, I'm probably going to choose to be paid in Bitcoin, Ethereum, ADA, XRP, and maybe a few others. It basically turns some old or spare devices into little kind of crypto earning machines, quietly just stacking, sats or, Lovelaces or drops or whatever it's going to be, right? Whatever coin kind of floats your boat, essentially. And it's all going to do this in the background. Now, it's not magic internet money because that does not exist, right? In crypto, money's only ever transferred. In the stock market, money's only ever transferred. Money's never made. Money isn't really just fictional like that. It's not magical internet money. Value's only ever transferred between participants. You buy, let's say, Zcash at $100. You sell it to someone else for $400, you might have taken $300 from a different investor. You didn't make $300 and materialize out of thin air. You basically just transferred it from one person to another, right? Money and value is transferring, not being made. There's no such thing as magical internet money or anything like that. I'm essentially just basically providing here value to the network by using these Unity nodes, by the way. Like perhaps my device's processing power, but it's more about the verification course. The way that Unity works, it's all about basically testing the communication networks, the telecom networks, to make sure that everything is working as it should. And if it finds an issue, it gets recorded on the blockchain, World Mobile's blockchain at that too. And of course, you get compensated for all that work. Now, I love the concept here, taking something as ordinary as a phone and using it to gradually accumulate crypto over time. Almost like staking, but without having to have a bag of coins to start with. Now, I do want to emphasize, right, that Unity nodes is not the main focus for today, and it's not some kind of guaranteed profit machine either. This is an experiment for me, right? I've talked about it in previous videos, so many of you guys will probably know the drill. The concept isn't brand new to this community. As always, you should do your own research before jumping into any project like this. I'm going to put some links in the description down below for Unity's light paper and their rewards calculator so you can see all of the details for yourself and go into the weeds if you want. But I figured it is probably worth mentioning because it is a part of what I am doing in the crypto space right now, trying new ways to earn and participate. I actually went a step further as well. I ended up purchasing a second and third Unity node. My idea is that I can lease out some of those licenses to members of our community who might be curious about Unity, but don't want to buy a full master node for themselves. Maybe you just want to run 1 or 2 devices and see how it goes. So I'm working on setting that up. More information will be available in our free educational Discord server. The link is in the description for that as well below. So if that does pique your interest, then hop into the Discord. It is a free educational community, and keep an eye out for any of our Unity updates. It's a way for me to share the opportunity and get more of us experimenting together and get those devices spread out far and wide. And of course, it prevents kind of like, I guess, having 200 devices all in a single location. All right, let's zoom back out and talk about the broader picture here again, because Zcash's rise also has me thinking about how to prepare for the ripple effects at least it could create in the crypto world. Specifically, I'm thinking about regulation and just being ready for anything, really. Now, if privacy coins keep trending up and grabbing headlines, you can bet that regulators might start sharpening their knives once again. Right, we've seen this movie before. Authorities, they get nervous about money that they cannot track, and they pressure exchanges or write new rules to try and control it. Now, it happened with Monero and Zcash in the past. Many exchanges actually delisted them in certain countries due to the compliance concerns. Now, I cannot predict what will happen next here, but I can suggest how to be prepared for it. Now, make sure that you have many options. And by that, I mean, don't put all of your eggs or coins into a single basket. Especially if one exchange, or in one exchange anyway, right? Because personally, I have to follow this kind of plan A, plan B, plan C approach. I have accounts on a whole bunch of different exchanges that I've signed up for, verified, and even tested with small trades. Why? It's because if one exchange suddenly freezes withdrawals, goes down during a peak volatility, and decides to drop support for a coin that I care about, then I don't want to be stuck. I can just quickly move to my plan B or plan C and just keep on going. Now, this strategy has saved my bacon a couple of times in past bull runs when certain trading platforms couldn't handle the traffic or had temporary issues. So it's kind of like having multiple escape routes planned out just in case of an emergency. So if you haven't done so yet, consider at least getting yourself set up on a few reliable exchanges, even if you don't actively use them all at once. And you're going to be glad that you have them later down the line when things get crazy. I've actually compiled a list of exchanges that I use and trust on my website. The link for that is in the description down below. Now, on the website, those are my affiliate links, which means that if you do decide to sign up and trade through them, it actually helps support the channel here at no extra cost to yourself. And of course, I'm grateful for anyone who does that. But more importantly, right, you're going to be equipping yourself with more options. And on that list, you're going to find well-known platforms, right? You're going to see things like 𝗕𝗙𝗀𝗀, Kraken, 𝗕𝗙𝗀𝗀, BitGet, KuCoin, MEXC, Gate.io. There's a whole host of reputable exchanges on there, Binance, Coinbase, and so forth, right? Now, 𝗕𝗙𝗀𝗀 and BitGet are a couple that I actually use regularly. And by the way, those links, it doesn't cost you anything extra to sign up through them. It just is a referral arrangement that, can sometimes give you a bonus, maybe a discount, while also supporting the channel here with a small kickback. Now, speaking of bonuses, I do have to tell you about this one, because it's one of the best promos that I've seen lately, and it ties in nicely with what we've been talking about here. Now, I've partnered up with Kraken, yes, the big crypto Kraken exchange, right? Now, for a limited time offer, that's perfect for anyone who's actually looking for at least to both expand their crypto exchange arsenal and also stack some extra crypto on the side. Now, here's the deal. If you sign up for Kraken through my special affiliate link that's in the description and on the website, and check out the description below, by the way. You trade at least $100 worth of any crypto on the Kraken exchange, anything but stable coins. Things like Bitcoin, ETH, ADA, all that kind of stuff, within 30 days of opening your account, while Kraken will give you $25 worth of XRP as a reward. It's basically free money, well, free XRP, for doing what you probably would do anyway, which is kind of making some trades. And if you've been around on this channel for a while, you know that I'm a big fan of accumulating XRP where I can. So this is a pretty sweet deal in my book. It's a win-win, right? You get to try out a top-tier exchange, you get a nice chunk of XRP, which of course you can hold or swap for something else if XRP is not your thing. And you get to help, at least I get to help you snag a bonus while the referral supports the channel here just a little bit. Just remember, right, it's a limited time thing, so if you are interested, don't sleep on it for too long. All the details, the sign-up links, and the full terms and conditions, or all the fine print about the $100 trading requirement and all the eligible jurisdictions are available in the description down below on the Kraken website. I've also put the link, on the website for ease of access. Anyway, as always, shout out to anyone who uses the affiliate links. It does genuinely help support the channel here. Just another note on this promo, it is obviously brought to you by Kraken. It's not affiliated with the channel here or with YouTube at all. All right, that's enough of shameless plugging for one video, right? Let's wrap up this story. What can we learn from Zcash's wild resurgence? Well, for me, the biggest takeaway is that crypto never ceases to surprise us. Just when you think a coin or a sector is dead or buried, it can actually come roaring back to life under the right conditions. Zcash's 700% moonshot reminds us that fundamentals like privacy can suddenly matter a whole lot when the world changes or when people's attitudes shift. It underscores a much broader point. Stay curious and keep learning. Now, I almost kind of wrote off Zcash, and maybe I did many years ago. And if I hadn't taken the time to dig into this, then I probably would have missed the biggest story here. Because it's not just a price pump, is it? But a sign of cultural and technological shifts in crypto. Whether Zcash continues climbing or not, the genie is kind of out of the bottle. Privacy is back on the menu, and it's likely to be an area of innovation and debate in the coming years, especially with that Midnight project that I mentioned earlier. And for those wondering, should I buy Zcash now? I cannot answer that. I am not a financial advisor, remember? What I can say is this: approach it like you would any volatile situation, with caution and a lot of research. The fact that it's still 90% below its all-time high tells you how extreme that 2016 bubble really was, and also maybe how much potential there could be if privacy really does go mainstream. It could go either way, which is why this space is equal parts exciting and, of course, nerve-wracking. Personally, I'm going to be keeping an eye on Zcash, and maybe even trying it out myself. If privacy becomes more important, then I might want to actually transact with it or hold a little bit of it. But either way, I'm definitely going to be keeping you all updated on how this narrative unfolds, as well as my Unity nodes experiment and everything else that's interesting that is happening in crypto. So, thanks for joining me today in this exploration of Zcash. I hope it sheds some light and maybe even entertained you all just a little bit. Now, if you've learned something or enjoyed the ride, then you know what to do. Make sure to smash the like button, hit subscribe for more stories like this, and I'll catch you all in the next one.